What's up guys, Hulky Boy here. Today we're going to be doing a 3-month review on the Alienware Amplifier and the Alienware 15. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I'll quickly go over the spec of this particular model. It's the i7 processor, which is a 4710HQ, which is a 2.5 GHz processor, 16 GB of RAM. I've got a 256 SSD, which has the operating system on, which is, as you can see, is Windows 8.1. And I've got a 1 TB data drive in there as well. I have the GTX 970M 3GB graphics on board, and the screen itself is the 4K touch. Yeah, so basically I've had quite a lot of people messaging me and dropping comments on videos asking about ghosting. I am aware that ghosting is an issue, especially when gaming, but from my knowledge, it's only on the 1080p IPS panels. I've seen various videos on YouTube and forums where it's the picture's trailing and it looks pretty bad, especially when you're gaming in high settings with the blur, motion blur turned right off. But it doesn't affect 4K screens, to my knowledge. There's people saying that the 4K screens aren't really affected. It's just the 1080p IPS screens. So do bear that in mind if you're going to purchase one. It may be worth spending a bit more on getting a 4K touch panel instead of the IPS to avoid this. I'm not too sure it's all of the 1080p screens, but there may just be a defective batch that's causing this. Since my last review, I've had several issues with blue screens, but let me just explain this. I don't think this has anything to do with the actual hardware or Alienware itself. It's 9 times at the knives. I've had several blue screens, and it's always been after, bar once, it's been an NVIDIA graphic update. I've had 2 updates, one of which was just before my The Witcher game review, and I had to update it to play this game. And when it did update, it all went through fantastic without the amp connected. Rebooted, blue screen. Rebooted again, it went in, and then I did the on-board part of the review session, then shut down the computer, plugged in the amp, and when it booted up, it blue screened again. So it kind of blue screens on the on-board section and on the amplifier. I mean, my amplifier's got a GTX 980 in it, an EVGA 4GB, so it's quite powerful. But literally, whenever I do a graphics update, I get a blue screen on boot up with the onboard, and then I get a blue screen with the amplifier, and it's done that 3 times now. Each and every update, it's done it. So not too sure what NVIDIA are doing, but yeah, it's causing some problems. But after the one blue screen, that's it. It works perfectly fine. But for whatever reason, it does blue screen of death on the first time after doing an update. The SSD drive, when I first had it, it was booting up in about 10.5 seconds, literally from pushing the power button, bang, it was in, it was working. It has slowed down considerably, as someone did point out in one of my previous videos. And the reason behind that is the SSD drive is practically full. I mean, when it gets to about 80%, they slow down considerably. I think now it takes about 35 seconds to boot up, which is quite a lot. But I just haven't got around to clearing it out. I mean, I did upgrade from the 128 to the 256 SSD. In hindsight now, I wish I'd have gone for something a bit bigger for the 512, because it does fill up incredibly quick, especially when you've got the amount of games I've got on there. I've got Evolve, Far Cry, Verdun, Metro, Dying Light, Counter-Strike Global, Grand Theft. They've got quite a lot of games on there, and they do. Especially lots of Battlefield, they're 30 gig a piece, so they will chew through an SSD pretty quickly. It is hard to keep clean as well. I've noticed that. I'm going through loads of anti-static wipes. I mean, you can see the palm rest itself. It just attracts finger grease and dirt, and the screen as well is a dust magnet. I'm not sure if that's anything to do with the fact it's a touch model, or the fact it's just a screen and it just attracts dust. But yeah, it does get very dusty, and I'm constantly having to wipe it down to keep it clean. It really does show up the fingerprints and greasy products and stuff on the actual palm rest itself. It does show quite badly, so I'm forever cleaning it. I have also noticed that when gaming, it does get quite hot if I'm using it on my lap anyway. I mean, when I'm on the desk like this and it's plugged into the power supply, I've not got an issue. But it does, when I'm using it on my lap, it does get quite hot. I mean, especially if the power supply is plugged in, because when it's not plugged in, it kind of defaults to 30 FPS, so it's kind of using, it's balancing it, so you get a good battery life in terms of when you've got it on the power supply. When we're running it off a PSU, you can literally, it won't cap the FPS, so it's going to get a lot hotter, a lot quicker. I generally find after about 15 or 20 minutes it does get pretty hot. I mean, like I said, the SSD drive, and you can see that is practically, as you can see up here, I've got 28 gig left on a 229 SSD. My data drive, yeah, so I store my videos, so that's pretty much empty at the moment. But it does fill up incredibly quick. The amplifier, I do enjoy using the amplifier, but the only problem, it is quite loud, especially if you're playing in 4K or if you're doing ultra settings or anything that's going to test it. It really does get quite loud. The built-in fan is a bit noisy. I may even move it to underneath the desk. At the moment it's to the left behind my two screens, so it's kind of out of the way, but you can hear it kick in, especially when you're gaming. It does, you can hear it over the game audio with that on quite loud, so that is something to bear in mind. And when it comes to how often I use it, I mean, at the moment I haven't got it plugged in. I do it when I'm doing reviews or when I want to play something in 4K or really push the settings, but the 970 on board is generally sufficient at gaming on anything modern in a decent FPS. If you're playing it in 1080p, it's not going to play the likes, like I said previously in other videos, it's not going to play in 4K. It's a bit juddery, but that's what the amplifier is there for. If you want to play something in 4K, if you really want to push the FPS to 80s and 100s in certain games, that is what that's there for. So I don't often use it, but every now and again when you want to play something in a 4K display, you want it nice and crisp, use the amplifier, boot it up. It also, another thing, on some of my videos you may notice when we're booting up with the amp, it does a double restart. You power it on, the amplifier kicks in and the laptop kicks in, then about 2 seconds later it goes and cuts off, and then a few seconds later it boots back up again. I'm not too sure if that's something that's supposed to happen. It's a bit strange, but it does it every time, and I've not had any issues, with it booting up or failing to boot when it does it. But it's just something I'm not constantly, it does it, but I've never noticed any sort of problems. It's just a strange thing that it does. Please enlighten me if you know anything about this. Even though I've got it in 4K, I mean, I have put it into 1080p at the moment, but I must say predominantly I game in 1080, I use it in 1080. There's not a lot of instances where I use it in 4K. It is a bit of a pain just to swap it out and swap it back every time you want to change the resolution. It is a very nice crisp screen and display in 4K, but it is just one of the things really. My preference is 1080, but I do use it from time to time in 4K. So if anyone asks what was the point in upgrading, then that is my my defence, as it were. I do use 4K every now and again, and over time it is going to become more widely used. I mean, there's certain videos on YouTube now that are displaying in 4K and gaming, etc. So over the next few years it will become more and more relevant. I'll just quickly go over some pros and cons just to summarise really what I've kind of picked up over the last few months of using it. The pros start, I mean, first of all, the front facing speakers. You've got the two speakers down the front here. They are nice and loud, to be fair. They're very nice quality. They are quite loud. I mean, in all honesty, my previous Dell, the sound quality on it wasn't great. But yeah, you get what you pay for when it comes to an Alienware in comparison. Let's just play a quick song just to show you guys what I'm talking about. A bit of lost frequencies. If I wrap the sound up. At midnight, are you with me? I think that's on full volume. Yeah, 100%. So it's not bad. It's not overly loud, but it is loud enough. It's much louder than the standard laptop, I think. So I haven't found the need to buy any. I haven't found the need to buy any external speakers or anything like that. Or you can get these basic subs and stuff. I'm not really bothered with anything like that. The speakers on it are pretty good. The lights. I mean, I don't often change lights. I went from green and I'm now on blue. Some people go mad and have them all sorts of colours. I mean, it is hours of fun. Yeah, pissing around with the colours and the lights and the displays and everything like that, but each to their own. I just jump for one solid colour. I don't like it all flashing up in the face, but I still do love the touchpad, but I will turn it off when I'm gaming because running your hand across and turning it on can get quite annoying. And yeah, the final pro is the 4K. It's fantastic. I mean, I love how crisp it is and responsive, and overall I'm very happy with it. Like I said, I do use it in 1080 most of the time, but to have the option to swap it to 4K and play when using the amplifier to get some good FPS, it is, you know, second to none in my opinion. Just to recap the cons, I mean, the palm rest again, dust, dirt, it just attracts it. I mean, after using it for a few hours, especially if you've eaten some crisps or anything like that, you've got to have proper clean hands. You just literally leave fingerprints, smudges, marked everywhere. So yeah, you will be cleaning it quite a lot if you're like me and like it spick and span. It does get hot, like I said before. That's another con. It gets hot on your lap. I mean, at the moment, it's just idle on the desktop. It's not going to get hot at all. But when I'm gaming, it will warm up. And when I'm sitting on the sofa or on my lap, I will notice it, especially start kicking in and heating up. So please bear that in mind. You may want to prefer to use it on a desk such as this instead of on your lap when you're gaming. That is general use. It doesn't get too hot at all. And the amp fan, more than anything, it's loud when you're gaming in high resolutions and ultra settings. It does get quite loud and it can overpower the game audio. So please bear that in mind. If you have any other questions, I'll try and get this short. I'm just hitting 11 minutes now, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the comments. I'll do my best to reply to everyone. I appreciate all the subs. We're up to 130 odd now, so I do appreciate all your support and all the likes, everything. You know, I do love checking it in the morning, seeing views and bits and pieces. So thank you once again for your support. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me a message or drop one in the comment section below. And have a great day.